Hi, my name is Cheryl, for those of you that are joining our channel for the first time. And one of the things that I did, I posted a video about my choice to go into the military and what it was like when I first was accepted. So if you want to check that, you might want to go to one of my older videos to see that. But I promised you that I would talk a little bit about my first days of being in, well, not really in the military, but as a trainee in the military, and what that was like. They called it BMT, which is Basic Military Training for the Air Force. Anyway, basic training. I really felt, like my title says, bullied. I really did feel that way at the time. And I'm going to explain why that was that I felt bullied. But let me just go back and talk a little bit about military training. For Air Force, it's called basic training, and the training instructors were called TIs. So when I talk about the training instructor, I will say TI, so you know what that means. Anyway, because there's a lot of acronyms with the military. So my first, I left the MEP station, which is basically the military entrance processing station. I left that out of Boston and flew to San Antonio, Texas, where they at Lackland Air Force Base had basic military training for Air Force. And I believe that that's the way it still is today. And if any of you are listening to me that were in the Air Force or maybe are in the Air Force now, you can let me know in the comments section, but I'm pretty sure they still do basic training there at Lackland. Anyway, this was many years ago. I went in 1980. And it was probably one of the hardest times in my life was to get through basic training. And there's actually a statistic out there that says 15% of all recruits, all the people that come into basic training, don't make it. They fail. And I really felt like, as I was going through it, that I was going to be one of that category, the 15% fail, 15% of people that would fail. I thought I was going to be in that group of people. But so just to give you an idea, we got from Boston, we flew into San Antonio, and they bussed us from the airport to to Lackland. I remember riding on the base. It was so late. I want to say it was probably midnight to 2 a.m. I mean, it was really late because it was a long process to get through everything at the MEP station. So, so here I was on Lackland Air Force Base. We were still in civilian clothes, of course, because we just got there that evening or early morning. And everyone was given the opportunity, well, everybody had to go, because whenever we did anything, we did it in groups. So everyone that was there was going to be in my flight. And a flight consists of 60 people. At the time, it was 60 people in a flight. And I'll explain that a little bit later about how the actual dorm was situated, so you get an idea of what it was like. So anyway, we get to what they call the chow hall, because they said, well, you know what, it's late. Well, actually early in the morning. We're going to let you sleep in a little bit. We're going to let you get something to eat before we enter the dorm. So here we are. I'm standing in line waiting to go into the chow hall, the mess hall, or whatever you want to call it, the cafeteria. They called it the chow hall back then. And I'm visiting with some of the girls. I mean, I've never seen some of these people. It was all new. They were coming from all different places. I was really interested to find out a little bit more about them. And within minutes of me visiting, probably less than a minute, I had a TI in my face, training instructor. Sergeant Combs, I'll never forget her, sticking her hat in my forehead, screaming at me and telling me, did I think I was on vacation? And to turn around and get in line and shut the hell up, basically. Excuse the language, but that's kind of the language that they would use, very filthy language. So it was at that time that I didn't know it at the time, but I think that was when I had a target on my back. She was after me the whole time. After that particular time, I didn't know that I had to be quiet. I wasn't aware. I thought we could talk to people. So that was my first encounter with Sergeant Combs. So to be honest with you, I hated military training at the time. I mean, when I look back on it, I know it's just a game. All of it's a game. It's a mind game. It's to help give people discipline, handle themselves appropriately, listen to orders, and all those things. They teach you really a lot of stuff. So I do understand that Sergeant Combs had a job to do, and I probably didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And that's kind of why I ended up in the place that I was in. But okay, so we have breakfast, and one of the things that I learned real quickly is that when we are eating, we don't have time to visit. You have less than 5 minutes to eat. And everyone goes through a line. It's like a buffet line, only it's not a buffet, but everyone just kind of throws food on your plate. And then you get to your seat. There's 4, I believe there was 4 to a table. You had to stand there until everybody got there, and then you were allowed to sit down. We were taught that that's what we had to do, and we did it the whole time. But we only had 5 minutes to eat. And if that, I mean, you just had to chow down, is basically what you had to do. And after that, we were able to go into what they call the dorm. And there were 2 bays. That's the way it was. And the bays were set up. You had 2 sides of the bay with a wall in between. And then the bays consisted of 30 people on each side. So you had about 60 people. And there were a line of beds, about 15 beds on each side. You had 2 lines on each bay. So you had, like I said, 60 people. There was no wall other than that wall that separated 30 and 30 girls. The shower situation was the same. You had a huge shower, but there was no privacy at all. You go in, everyone took a shower together, and it was just like they had all these shower heads everywhere, and that's the way they did it back then. So we get into bed, and quickly they tell us to get in bed and everything, and we're all assigned our beds, our lockers, and all that stuff. So we were able to throw our clothes, wear our civilian clothes to bed, because I mean that's all we had at that point. We slept, and I don't really know how long we slept, because we did get in really late that evening or early morning, so I think we were able to sleep in a little bit. But so the first thing that we did when we got up in the morning is we had to learn how to make a bed. And it was very, you had to set it up a certain way. Everything was rules, everything was inspected. I mean, everything. Your shoes, when you lined up your shoes, they had to be a certain, that your toe couldn't be above, they had to be right in line, and they had to be a certain way under the bed. I mean, it's crazy. So here we are, we get up, and the first thing that we do is, if we want to, we can get a haircut. And I thought, since we're not going to have a lot of time, I had really long hair. I said, you know what, I'm going to cut my hair short. That way I don't have to worry about it, because you have to put your hair up. It has to be above the collar, and it has to be what they call 3510, which is an acronym for, basically there's a standard for holding your hair and being in uniform and all that. And one of the things that we had to do is make sure our hair was up. And I didn't want to mess with that. I wanted to make sure that I was okay, so I just cut my hair really short. And I didn't, I wasn't really upset about that, because I just thought it would be easier. And in the end, I think it really was easier for me to do that. So the first thing that we did after we got up was we went to the chow hall, had breakfast, and then we marched. And I say that loosely because we were just learning how to march, and I'm sure that we didn't look good. Everywhere you went on base, you had to march as a flight, and you had to be in, a certain cadence, and you had to count, and you had to say, all these things, and, move your arms a certain way. And we just looked like clowns out there, I'm sure, the first time we did it. It was kind of crazy when I think back on it. But so we went to breakfast, again, less than 5 minutes to eat. And then we went to go out and get our uniforms. And we did get all of our uniforms, and then we had to get back to the dorm and hang them up, and then we had to get in them. The uniform that we wore was an olive green fatigue, and I will put a picture of what that looks like. I don't have me standing up, but you can kind of see what it looks like on one of the pictures that I have. This was after I was in the military for a while, but you'll get to see it. We couldn't wear our blues until towards the very end, and that was like near graduation, and we were I don't know what the word, I'm trying to think of the word, suitable enough to wear the blues, because the blues were like, you had to be a certain stature as an airman, so to be able to wear blues, and we weren't there yet. The other thing we did is that after we got our uniforms, we put them on, there was time for us to have our suitcases looked at, because when we first came in the military, we were all given a list of items that were authorized and unauthorized items. So you couldn't have anything that was, according to them, unauthorized. So the TI would go through, and she had a helper. I only remember her because she was really after me. I felt bullied, to be honest with you. And so she came up to my suitcase and she said, "You have unauthorized items, Airman." And she threw my full suitcase across the room. All my stuff went flying everywhere. And I was shocked. And I just looked at her and she says, "What are you going to do? Stand there or go pick them up?" So I ran and picked up the clothes and everything and put it all together. And then she took out whatever the unauthorized item was. I think she probably made it up because she was after me, but that's my opinion. So the first night, well, I already told you about my very first night. And what would happen is whenever you did something wrong, you would get this little form. It was called a 341. A 341 was a discrepancy. And if you got so many 341s, I mean, you would be in trouble. I don't really know. I got a lot of 341s. 341s were also given for excellence, which I don't even know if any of us ever got them because none of us were good enough. But I do remember that 341s was something that you didn't want to get. You get pulled. I think you had to carry them in your pocket. And I want to say we had to carry them in our pocket. And if we got in trouble for something, they would take it out of our pocket because we did something wrong. Again, it was just a game. But so that very first night, I mean, after we got our uniforms, we were told to meet in the day room, which was a room with all kinds of furniture in it. And here we are all sitting down on the furniture, and she comes screaming in and telling us, what are we doing on the furniture, that we weren't good enough to sit on the furniture, to move the furniture to the side of the walls, and we were to all sit down on the floor until we were good enough to sit on the furniture. So I thought, oh my gosh. It was at that meeting that we learned that that's where we were going to get our mail. Every night we would have a meeting, a dorm meeting with the TI, and that we would be offered our mail if we got any. And one of the things that we had to do is we had to report for our mail. And if we failed to report, then we wouldn't get our mail that day. And the way we reported was, "Ma'am, Airman so-and-so reporting for mail." Well, there was a couple times that I forgot to report. I know. I mean, I think I was so nervous. I wasn't the ideal airman, I don't think, in her eyes anyway. And you know how devastating that was to know that you had a letter and you had to wait to get it till the next day? I mean, I think I probably only failed to report one time. I wasn't the only one, though. There were a few other people that were also forgot to report. So after we were there a few days, we got a chance to we got some money. The Air Force, you did get paid for basic training. And back then it was cash, because it was nothing in the 80s. They didn't have anything that was digital type money. So you had to go to the cashier's cage to get your money. And I remember there were a lot of different vending machines. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to have a bunch of big bills. I think I'm going to get small ones. And I think it was like $80 that we got. I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure it was under $100. And I know I probably got half of that in dollar bills. Well, that was a big mistake, because little did I know, when we got back to the dorm, we had to, there's serial numbers on all of your money. If you look at your dollars, you'll see serial numbers. We had to inventory our cash. Needless to say, I was a long time writing down our numbers. And what she would do when she did her inspection, you got to lock up your money. And she would actually, you had to put your underwear and your shirts, and you had to fold them a certain way. And you had to put everything in a certain way. It was all very regimented. And she would go through and just willy-nilly look at your dollars and see if you had the correct serial numbers according to what you had logged. And if you used your money, you had to cross it out, date it when you used it, and all that stuff. So, I mean, I made a really bad mistake by getting those dollars, but I didn't know that was what was going to happen. It seemed like every time I turned around, I was doing something really stupid. Anyway, we would have to get up. It was called, bugle call. You'd get up. I mean, you know what I mean? There's like a bugle, but it's not really a real bugle, but it's over a sound system. And it's a way of getting everybody up. You probably heard that morning bugle call, and I hated hearing it because it would be about 5:30, 6 o'clock. We all had chores to do, and I don't remember what the official Air Force term was for that. Maybe some of you watching know, but we had certain duties that we had to complete before we could go downstairs. We had to get in uniform, we had to make our bed, we had to set up all our shoes, make sure we had to look at our lockers and make sure everything was in its place, because you were always inspected. And then we were in formation. We had to be in formation at a certain time. So we didn't have a lot of time, which I was really glad that I had cut my hair short, because I didn't have to worry about that. Everything was extremely structured, and there were inspections all the time, but it was a way of teaching discipline. When I look back on it, I know that that's why they did what they did. But I will tell you, I never got out of the sight of my TI. She was constantly after me. I lost so many base libs where, you were free to go for an hour or so on base, and you could go to, they had the Airmen's Club where you could get a soda, and because you couldn't drink when you were in a TI and when you were in training. And I was 20 at the time, but at that time, I think you could drink when you were 18 years old. At least you could on base. So, but you couldn't drink when you were in basic training. So that's kind of the way it was. I mean, I could tell you so much more, but I really, really did feel picked on. I lost everything. I mean, they had this thing called town. You could go to town, and it was only once right before graduation. Everybody was able to go and look at San Antonio. And I had been in I'd been in a whole lot of trouble with my TI, and base lib was taken away from me. I never was able to go out and have fun because she was always on my butt. But one thing I will tell you, and I've always been very good at following instructions. I'm very much a follow the rules type person. And when I was in basic training, I had it up to here with her telling me I couldn't. And when everybody went to town, I hope she's not watching, but when everyone went to town, I was punished basically and restricted to the dorm. But all the other girls that were in there, I told them I wasn't going to stay restricted to the dorm. I was going out to the base. I couldn't get off base, but I was going to go and do a base lib. And I asked any of the other girls if they wanted to come, and there were a few that came with me. And we went out and we had a good time. Went back much earlier than I knew that everybody else had to be back. I don't know if she ever knew, but she never said anything. Sergeant Combs, she never ever got on my butt about it. So I was a little defiant in that one moment, which is not like me at all, but I had it. Anyway, that's about it. I mean, I could tell you like a lot of stories, but that was my experience with basic training. If any of you have had experiences, whether that be boot camp for Marines, and I don't know what the Navy calls it, but and the Army, I don't know what you call your thing, but I would be really interested in the comments to hear what you have to say about your experience with it. Did you feel bullied, or did you think it was a game all the way through? I was young, very sheltered. I did not expect what was going to happen. One thing is, I will tell you, is the TIs never touched you. And I think that might have even been a law that they couldn't do that. But they did get in your face, they swore at you, and they really did demean you. And basically what they were doing was dragging you down so they could build you back up. I made it through training. I was very happy. I was able to graduate and go to tech school, which I will talk about in my next video, what tech school was like, and then what my first duty station was like, where I got stationed, and how that affected me. I hope that you'll join me in the next one, and I'm so happy that my present subscribers are continuing to follow us, and those of you that decide to be new subscribers, please subscribe. If you're not going to be you're thinking if you're on the fence about it, we love to have new subscribers. Our channel has been really slow growing, and I have a lot of videos to share, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye.